Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon in 22.5 degrees of Aries, which will be exact on April 11th at 10:31 p.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, and that will be exact also on April 12th at 3:31 a.m. London time. So, of course, a new moon always marks the beginning of a new moon cycle. So anything brand new that we start within the next 2 weeks has a really fantastic chance to get off to a great start, especially because we're also in the Aries energy, which is always about new beginnings. Now, the new moon is a good time to go within, like right at the time of the new moon, so we can get in touch with the energy that's being transmitted, and we want to plant a seed for anything we would like to begin over the next 28 days. So I will be mentioning the best and most potent time to set intentions for this lunar cycle towards the end of this video. So stay tuned for that. And also please take advantage of the timestamps that I have added to the description part of the video in case you want to watch the video in shorter sequences or skip to any later part of the video or go back and forth. All right, whatever your heart desires. Now let's get started here. So this new moon chart has 4 out of 10 planets in Aries, as well as 2 asteroids in Aries. So there's sort of like a stellium. It's called like a stellium when the planets are all like one after another. We have a stellium in Aries that consists of Chiron, Mercury, Ceres, the moon, the sun, and Venus. Now this asks us to show courage from our heart, to be unafraid, to embrace who we are, and to inspire others by forging our own path. And so what you want to ask yourself here is, where am I being called to take a risk and try something new? What feeds me? What do you really feel what do you feel like super passionate about that feeds you? And what is the next step towards becoming an increasingly healthy, strong, curious, and flexible person, and one that is not afraid to pursue personal goals and desires, and also someone who speaks up for what needs healing in our society around the traditional masculine. So for those of you who are not so familiar with that term, the traditional masculine is the energy that we've been kind of like moving with for a really long time in the last 200, 300, 400 years, maybe longer even than that, where the doing energy or the pursuing energy or the energy of like going after something has sort of like dominated, and where we're also dominating the planet, dominating other people, dominating other living things. That's sort of been a little bit the traditional masculine that I'm talking about here. So how do we heal that traditional masculine in the society that we're currently living in? And so one of the many ways we can demonstrate courage in our lives right now is to allow ourselves to be in the condition of not knowing, or in the condition of beginner's mind. And this is very powerful, because when we're allowing ourselves to be in beginner's mind or not knowing, we are more present. We are also have more the ability to tap into our creative potential that becomes heightened. And you can ask yourself here, where could I bring a beginner's mind to the table, in my life? Like, where would be a great moment for me to experiment with that beginner's mind attitude or space? And where do I need to let go of needing to know everything before I begin? This is sort of like a Virgo trait a little bit. So for those of you who have Virgo energies, you know what I'm talking about. But we all have it somewhere in our chart, right? So where do I need to let go of needing to know everything before I begin? This is also a big part of our cultural conditioning, to not jump in right away, but to be sort of like, to make sure that we're doing the right thing, or to make sure that we're having all of our ducks in a row before we even start something, that we know everything, intellectually speaking. So this is something that we want to also investigate in terms of our own cultural conditioning or social conditioning. So where do I need to let go of needing to know everything before I begin? And Aries is very keen on jumping in and just going for it, even if we don't know anything about what we're doing. So it has a little bit of like it has a very young energy, Aries, right? It has like a teenage energy almost, like where it's like, do now, think later. And of course, you can take that to an extreme as well, right? So it's not always advisable to use that particular path, but it's important that we explore and experiment with that too, especially if you've moved into a place where you feel a little bit stuck, or where you feel like nothing's moving. Then this new young energy can really help us to get out of that rut, right? So if you feel you have been in a rut, that would be a great energy to access right now. Now, about this stellium in Aries, let's start with the close alignment between the new moon and Venus in Aries. So we have the new moon, the sun and the moon, and Venus right next to each other. So we're invited to actively connect with others and do something enjoyable, something that we feel good about, something that we feel passionate about, something active. And so you can ask yourself here, what if I got in touch with my passion for life just for the next 28 days? What would that feel like, look like? What would I do if I were in that place? And use your imagination, as you're asking yourself that question. And of course, with all my questions, please feel free to journal on them, or feel free to meditate on them, or just brainstorm with other people if you like. But allow yourself to have it be sort of like an open inquiry, to not ask the questions to have your answers or to look for the answers, but to allow yourself to receive the answers. And I hope you can feel the difference here when I describe that. Another question you can ask here is, what if I could inspire others just by being myself? And this is beautiful. If even just 50% of the planet can accomplish that, that would be amazing. Just by allowing yourself to honor who you are, be yourself, love yourself, and do what feels in alignment with you, what you feel passionate about. And that's, that is enough to inspire, the rest of the world. Now, the new moon Venus alignment in Aries also squares Pluto in Capricorn. So that's a very important aspect in this new moon chart. And this is emphasizing that we are at a turning point right now. Squares pressure us to face our current reality. And if everything's working pretty well in your life and you feel like you're on the right track with things, then we're definitely ready to take a big step forward with that square. But if you don't feel that you're on the right track, then we need to change course. That square will say, change something, do something differently. And it might give us the courage to do so with that Aries energy. So while we cannot always change our outer circumstances, obviously there is always going to be something outside of us that we can't control. We can always choose, though, how we want to respond to the things that are happening outside of ourselves. And so, for example, what choices we make within those outer circumstances, and then also how important we make those outer circumstances in terms of like how that impacts our own life. And this aspect in particular urges us to use this for the next 28 days to empower ourselves and other people. And empowerment is something that is really important these days, right? It's really important that we make sure that we feel empowered and strong from within. So empowerment is not necessarily something where you have to be like a superhero, or where you have to be like steel, that nobody can ever hurt you. Empowerment is really more of like feeling of like I'm okay and I'm going to be okay even if I keep my heart wide open. And that's really important with empowerment, right? It's like your heart needs to stay wide open. If you cut yourself off from other people or from the world, or if you try to be overprotective of yourself, then you're really not completely empowered, because then a part of you is scared that you're not going to be okay. So empowerment is really just saying, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay, and I want to instill that in other people as well. I want other people to know that they're okay and that they're going to be okay. And I trust that they are okay and they're going to be okay, and that I'm okay and I'm going to be okay. So it's a matter of trusting as well. Trusting yourself, trusting life, trusting your own inner resilience, trusting your ability to adapt and to be flexible, trusting that you are strong enough to overcome things that need to be overcome. So there's a lot of trusting and open-heartedness that is involved in empowerment. And so ask yourself here, what could I consciously choose that would align with my heart energies and passion for life? What could I consciously choose? And what do I observe when I come from fear? How about when I guard or defend my physical, emotional, or mental well-being? What do I observe then? So it's really about allowing yourself also to pay attention to how you're operating yourself, without judgment, without putting yourself down for it, but to make sure that you're in tune with it, that you understand it, that you're aware of it, because awareness is always the first step. When we do things unconsciously and without awareness, it's very difficult to create a shift. But when we're aware of it, and then we can give ourselves some love and give ourselves compassion and understanding as we're noticing things that we're doing, whether we like it or not, right? That gives us the ability to then create a shift within. Now, some other questions you can ask here is, could I give myself permission to open my courageous heart 5% more when I notice any rigidity or tension in my body? And how about when I reject someone else's preferences, words, or behaviors? Could I give myself permission to open my courageous heart 5% more when I reject someone else's preferences, words, or behaviors? When I notice that. And what if I could simply pause at that moment? What if I could simply pause, give myself some space? And how might flexibility and an open heart play an important role in that moment? Flexibility, so important when it comes to squares, when it comes to, any kind of Uranian energy that we're encountering, when it comes to Pluto. Pretty much the outer planets, I think, are a good one to connect with in a more open, flexible way. Now, if I felt fully empowered from within and absolutely passionate about life, what would I build? What would I do then? What would I do out there in the world? How would I want to be seen out there in the world if I felt fully empowered from within and absolutely passionate about life? And again, use your imagination to just see what comes up and allow yourself to really go there, no matter where you're at currently in your life. Really play with this. And what would be truly meaningful to my soul and to the collective in the long run? What would be meaningful to my soul and to the collective in the long run? And just remember here, the soul doesn't die. The soul always lives on. It's eternal. There's a part of you that is eternal. And what would be truly meaningful for that part of you that is completely eternal? And I think that's something we have to sometimes, we want to go there with our imagination, because, when we're in human form, everything's so absolute in the sense that, one day we will die. Our physical body will die. And yes, that's true, but there's something else that lives on. And what about that part? What would that part want for us? What would that part want for humanity? What would that part want for the planet, for the collective? So that's just something to, again, meditate on, journal on, fantasize with, imagine, maybe brainstorm with a group of people that are like-minded, that you love to have these conversations with. Now, if you want to have access to all the new moon questions from this video in writing, there's going to be plenty more as we go along talking about other aspects. And also the full moon video every month that's only available to members right now. Feel free to check out the various levels of membership on my website at astrologercoach.com. And if you're already a member, check your membership portal by signing into your account on the website, and you will find all my posts inside the My Content tab. All right. Now, the new moon questions are available via the New Moon in Aries article by April 7th, the latest. So if you're watching this video before April 7th, then you gotta just be a little bit patient and wait until the questions are available. However, it is best to use the questions after the new moon becomes exact anyway. So after April 11th or on April 11th or after April 11th is the best time to really work with these questions for the length of the new moon cycle. So for that 28 days after April 11th. All right, now back to the new moon chart. Pluto in Capricorn starts to slow down, which we call stationing in astrology, only 48 hours after the new moon becomes exact. And during its station phase, Pluto's energies become much more exalted. And that confronts us with whatever is still leaving us feeling disempowered around our worldly accomplishments or our long-term goals. And this station phase will last until May 12th. So that's a nice and long time, right? With Pluto, because Pluto is so slow moving that the station phases last almost 4 weeks. And until then, we're asked to hang out with any discomfort this might cause and observe what comes up. Because the station phase does give us the awareness that we need to understand what needs to be addressed. And so, again, we have to remember awareness is always the first step towards experiencing a shift of any kind. Second step is compassion. First step is awareness. So please remember, we will also address the Pluto Station and retrograde phase in more detail in relationship with our own birth charts. So we really look to see where does that happen in your own birth chart in our next forecasting forum on April 23rd. And if you're not yet a star member of my online community, feel free to join us by registering for this month only. And to do so, you can click on the link below this video that I have ready for you to click on. And or you can also go to my website, to the homepage. You'll see a place where you can register there as well. And there's also an early bird special that will be available until April 20th. So take advantage of that if you are not a star member currently. And then just ask yourself, where do I still experience disempowerment in my life? Where does that show up? And you know when you feel disempowered. It just feels like this. It feels heavy. It feels disencouraging. It's this place where we just feel like, not again, or why did this have to happen? So you have this experience of disempowerment. Notice, where is that still happening? And what do I notice about my reaction to that? So when it does happen, what's my reaction? What's my immediate reaction when I feel that? And is it at least possible that fears that stem from the past are not here right now? And really sit with this question, because I know this question might seem a little bit like, what is she talking about? But really allow yourself to sit with this question. Is it at least possible that fears that stem from the past are not here right now? Sometimes, we go into memory in order to pull up fears that are actually not here in the moment, but we bring them into the now moment, but they're actually not connected to the now moment. They're connected to something in the past, So really sit with that. And what about fears stemming from the possible futures I imagine? Again, it's not that it's here right now, but we imagine a future, a possible scenario down the line, and fears come up. And so we drag those fears into the present with us, even though they're not connected to the present. And then what if I knew for certain that I was going to be okay no matter what the outcome? What if I knew for certain that I was going to be okay no matter what the outcome? And this is a really, really important one that we want to experiment with, and we want to tap into that question, because that can really change your life. If you really connect to that every day, that can really change your life. And what needs my conscious awareness? What needs my light? Because remember, with Pluto, it's about you need to go into the depth, into the unconscious, into the dark, in order to see what's there, to bring it up into conscious awareness and to shine a light on it so that it loses its power. And that's the disempowerment part, is that dark place. So what needs my conscious awareness? What needs my light? And during this time of change, please remember, as we're all, as a collective, moving towards change or through change, self-care is definitely worth our attention. We need to make sure that we get plenty of rest. So important. So important. That we get plenty of affection, water, healthy nutritional food. We need to really take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So important. Self-care. Whatever that looks like for you, experiment. Do something that you haven't done before. Really look to see, how can I expand my level of self-care? Even if it's just in small ways. It doesn't have to be huge, giant steps. It could be little things, like just closing your eyes once in a while and sending every cell in your body some love. That's very simple. And anybody can do that, no matter how busy you are, no matter how many family members tug on you. Can just once in a while close your eyes and send every cell in your body some love. It's a beautiful practice. But we can do little things here and there that are self-care and that really help us to stay in a place of centeredness with ourselves. Now, the new moon Venus alignment also sextiles Jupiter in Aquarius. Now, that's a much nicer aspect, in the sense that it gives us the opportunity for expansive new beginnings that involve our communities or our networks. So what you can ask yourself is, what am I most aware of at this time? What if I took an optimistic approach to the role I play in my various communities? And what mental or spiritual growth might be waiting for me? What would courage do? So this is really something where we're able to have this feeling of expansion around our communities, whether that's online, whether that's locally, whether that's friends, or just like-minded people that we want to connect with, anything like that. We're getting a chance to really do something new, possibly, because it's Aries, something that we step into that requires our courage in some way, but there's an opportunity here. So remember, with opportunities, you need to take action on opportunities. Otherwise, they're just going to fade away. If you don't take action, opportunity will not be realized. All right. Now, also part of this stellium in Aries, we have a close Chiron-Mercury alignment. And I want to talk about that in particular because Chiron and Mercury sort of lead this stellium, the beginning of the stellium. And so they're very important in this new moon chart. Now, this connection represents an opportunity to share our individual approach towards gentler leadership and inspire others to engage in a healing process around the masculine yang energy. And to do some healing around physical, sexual, and spiritual wounds. We want to allow ourselves to be human while on our path to wholeness and a larger, more purposeful life. So what you can ask yourself here is, in what ways could I be more conscious of my own personal healing journey? And could I give myself permission to be fully human, to be insecure, sensitive, vulnerable? I mean, that's part of being human, but very often we want to reject those parts because we don't want to, we want to be superhuman and not human. Very often we reject the parts of ourselves that are sort of like a little bit more animalistic, or, you know, where there's no strength, what we label strength, or what we consider strength. We try to not be with those characteristics very often. But we have to remember that all of that is part of being human. So by not embracing all of that, we're really cutting ourselves off from ourselves. And some other questions that you can ask you is, how could a shift in perspective around leadership serve me at this time? And what gifts might a sensitive leader or an unusual hero be able to bring to us all at this time? So, you know, Aries has a lot to do with leadership, inspired leadership. And by being yourself, you know, you inspire others to be themselves. But with Chiron there, we have to make sure that we're also sensitive towards the parts of ourselves that are not perfect, the parts of ourselves that are human. And so we want to embrace leadership in a new way, you know, sensitive leadership, unusual hero. These are all words that are connected to that Chiron component. And Chiron really asks us to incorporate not just the strength of Aries, the courage of Aries, but to also incorporate you know, the emotional, spiritual, mental part that it involves to become a leader, you know, to approach it from a holistic point of view. Now, what role does anger or domination play in the traditional masculine? And this is something I already mentioned a little bit earlier. What role does anger or domination play in the traditional masculine? And how do I experience those traits within me? Because we all have anger somewhere, right? We all have the ability to dominate either another person or be dominating towards the planet, towards, you know, other living beings. So what role does anger or domination play out there and within me? And when do we experience these traits? And what if, just as an experiment in freedom, I let go of my resistance towards those things? Because, you know, as human beings, we do often have resistance towards anger or domination outside of ourselves. In terms of like our own anger and our own ability to dominate, we're very often we're suppressing that, or we don't want to be with that. Especially females have a hard time with this. So learning how to actually let go of that resistance towards anger or domination is like the first step in just embracing those parts of yourselves that are that and that are there. And they're there for everybody. Every human being has anger or issues around domination at some point in their lives. So it's not a matter of getting rid of them. It's more a matter of embracing that part of yourself and consciously connecting to it rather than letting it unconsciously rule you. Because it's there, whether you deny it or not, whether you suppress it or not, it's still there. So you might as well embrace it and use it consciously, because anger used in a conscious fashion can be very useful and very powerful as long as we don't use it in a way that's destructive. right? Anger can also be used in non-destructive ways. It's just often we don't know how to do that. We don't learn how to do that from our ancestors, from our people that have taught us about anger. Very often we don't have a healthy relationship with anger. So this is something we want to really understand about ourselves, especially with Chiron and Aries right now. It gives us the opportunity to heal issues around anger, especially unhealthy anger, destructive anger. Now, what if, as an experiment in freedom, I let go of my resistance towards anger and domination, even their unhealthy expressions? And if that's a challenging idea, could I give it a try just for a single brief moment, just for right now? So allow yourself to use these questions. Now, Mars is the ruler of Aries. So let's take a look at Mars in this new moon chart. It's currently in Gemini, sextiling the new moon, trining Jupiter in Aquarius, and squaring Neptune in Pisces. So lots going on with that Mars in that new moon chart. Let's unpack that and see what all of this means. Now, the sextile that Mars is making to the new moon presents an opportunity to connect with others and share our individual approach or teach something that we feel passionate about. So ask yourself, who might need the information I can provide? So if there's any kind of information that you have that you could share, that you can give to people, who might need it? And who might provide me with the information I need? So if there's anything that you need that you could get from somebody else, who might that person be? And what needs to be shared or communicated so I can move forward faster? Because of course, when we're dealing with Aries, we want to move fast, right? And Mars in Gemini also wants to move fast. So we definitely want to look, how can we connect and share something with others so that we can actually make this happen, that we can move forward with things. Now, Mars' trine to Jupiter in Aquarius gives us a chance to connect with like-minded people, expand each other's mind, and share information that allows us to see the bigger picture. So our positive attitude helps us a great deal with that, and also with taking risks. And that can definitely get us unstuck if we do feel stuck currently. And we definitely also have the vigor to blast through challenges right now, because Jupiter and Mars are both very good at that. And since they're supporting each other with this trine, they're just saying, hey, let's go, let's do this. So ask yourself, what could I tackle right now that seemed impossible before? What actions can I take right now that seemed impossible before? And how could other people support me with those actions? So the last thing that Mars is encountering in this new moon chart is the square to Neptune in Pisces. And that asks us to make some adjustments and do a little stretching and growing around our inner connection to the divine or emotional experiences. So the feeling body. So we tend to either over or underestimate our own passion and abilities. So we might be going too fast or doing too much, because Neptune in Pisces also wants us to kind of go within and learn to listen to our own energy body so that we can know when it's important for us to rest or when it's important for us to slow down. And we look for some vision, ideal or dream to motivate us or to stir our imagination. So as best as you can, be gentle with yourself and others. Seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Sometimes that is so powerful when you can be the one that can say, I want to know where you're coming from before I tell you where I'm coming from. That is such a powerful practice. And if we could all do just a tiny bit more of that, like 5% more of that, I think the world would really become a much better place. So see if you can practice some of that. And we also tend to feel scattered at this time. Mars in Gemini feels a little scattered to begin with. but then squaring that Neptune, that can create even more this feeling of like, ooh, what's going on here? And should you observe that you're feeling scattered, just try asking, what might happen if I slowed down and listened to my intuition instead of aimlessly zooming ahead? So only if you've experienced this scatteredness. Another thing that's really worth mentioning in this new moon chart is that Mercury in Aries makes a mutual reception to Mars in Gemini. In other words, what that means is that these planets are in each other's sign. Mercury rules Gemini, Mars rules Aries, and they're in each other's sign at the time of the new moon. And so therefore, they're mutually supporting each other's agenda. And this gives us the opportunity to connect thought and action. And that's awesome. Thought and action. We think and we take action on it. Now we seek out mental stimulation from sharing, teaching, learning, writing, etc., or just accumulating information. And we want to immediately and courageously share the output. So anybody just wants to just go, okay, I just found this out. Boom, let me share it right away. And we can, of course, do this online or in person or via the various technologies that we have available to us. So allow yourself to be passionate and enthusiastic about any new information you find yourself processing rather than rushing into things. Stay open to learning, remain curious, and remember that every teacher is also a student and vice versa. And this is really important to remember. And this is something that I constantly feel when I teach anything or when I say anything in my coaching sessions to people. I always notice this sense of like, oh, this is not just for them. This is also for me. And that's really beautiful. If we can learn that whatever we're giving to others is not just for them, it's also for ourselves. That's a really beautiful thing to notice and to be aware of. So ask yourself here, what if I listened to myself 5% more? And what if I had 5% more faith that I'd be heard? And what might I discover about my thinking processes and what I'm enthusiastic about? And what actions can I take based on what I'm currently learning? So we're learning all the time, even if we're not thinking of it as learning. Life is learning all the time because every day there's something that happens that maybe hasn't happened before. And so you're learning from your own responses, from your own reactions. You're learning from experiences and interactions that you're having, from things that you've said or things that you haven't said. You're learning from sensations in your body. You're learning from the environment, from the earth, from what you're observing, what you're seeing in other people, what you're seeing in yourself. We're constantly learning, even if we don't call it that. So what actions can I take based on what I'm currently learning? Now, to sum it all up, Chiron has a big part in this new moon chart, and Chiron teaches us that there is no separation between the physical and the spiritual realm, nor between humanity and the rest of creation. And so healing happens when we're able to reconnect, because it's sort of like we're already connected to it, but sometimes we have to sort of like shift our thinking around that, reconnect to all of who we are, to our own humanity, our divinity, and our unity with all of life, with everything around us. And so ask yourself, where lies the most direct path towards wholeness? And how might directing kindness and compassion towards myself support me on that path? And then, of course, the highest expression of Aries, of the Aries energy, is expressed when we lead others by example and inspiration. And of course, people will always follow you because they see our courage. They see our enthusiasm for life, and they want to be a part of that. And that's why people follow us. So it's important to remember that, you know, the more you can be yourself, the more you can express who you are, that's how people will start to connect with you. Is everybody going to connect with you? No, of course not, because not everybody is on the same wavelengths. Not everybody wants to connect with everybody, right? Just like you don't want to connect with everybody out there in the world. Not everybody out there in the world wants to connect with you either. But the people that are inspired by your example, they are going to want to connect. And those are the people that you want to connect with. So it's perfect. So ask yourself, what might open up if once a day for the next 28 days after April 11th, I tuned into myself and simply listened to the higher vibration of my being. And this is a beautiful practice, you know, just being able to, like, I usually close my eyes. It's not something you have to do, but I like to close my eyes and just feel into this higher vibration of myself. And what's of course beautiful is now that if you live in an area where you have seasons, you know, with the seasons changing right now, there's sort of like this sense of newness in the air, of something transforming. And, you know, the sunlight or nature itself can sometimes bring us this feeling of like, you know, I can feel the life force coming through. And when we feel life force coming through, that is a reflection of our own life force. And so tuning into that, right? Tuning into that life force and just allowing us to feel, you know, this energy that moves through us. So powerful. Now, what if I dared to lead from the heart exactly as I am? And what if I were the one who inspired others, taught compassion, connected to the divine? If that were true, what single simple action step would I take right now in support of my own or someone else's healing process? And just remember, you know, the healing process is something that we all do with each other, for ourselves. It's sort of like, you know, the more you can help somebody else heal, the more you're going to heal yourself. The more you work on healing yourself, the more you can help somebody else heal. So it's completely interconnected in that way, and it's beautiful. Now, as best as you can, be patient and brave, because Aries, of course, can be a little bit impatient sometimes. So as best as you can, be patient and brave. Listen to your inner voice and bring your unique, passionate human self to the world. And remember that each of us makes this journey in our own way, in our own time. So focus on yourself, your own path, your truth, rather than on what lies beyond your control. Very important. We do not want to focus on the things that are beyond our control, because that gets us spun out of control. So focus on the things that you actually have control over. And that's you. That's your own path, your own truth, you know, your own responses to the world. Now, if you do have an ascendant or any personal planets in 20 to 25 degrees of Aries, Libra, Capricorn, or Cancer, you're going to feel this new moon stronger than other people. But even if you don't have planets or points in those degrees and signs, take a look at your birth chart and just look to see, where does 22.5 degrees of Aries land in your birth chart? Because the house placement of the new moon will indicate which area of your life is most ready for a new beginning for the next 28 days. So take a look. And if you don't know how to do that, you can always check out my 30-minute class on how to read your birth chart. You can get free access via my homepage at astrologercoach.com. Just scroll down on the homepage until you get to a window that says free class, and you click on that and you can watch that class there. Now let's talk new moon intentions. The new moon is also the best time to set some intentions for this month's moon cycle. And this process is especially powerful when the new moon is in Aries, because it's all about new beginnings. So as always, best not done after. You want to wait until after the new moon becomes exact. And you don't want to set intentions during the moon void of Taurus, because the moon void of Taurus is a time when we're kind of like not really connecting to anything in particular. So therefore, it's not a good time to seed an intention or a goal or a wish. So this month, the 2 opportune time frames for setting intentions. The first one will be for 9.5 hours between 10:31 p.m. on April 11th and 8:06 a.m. on April 12th. And the second one will last for 33 hours. So from 1:44 p.m. on April 12th until 10:31 p.m. on April 13th. And all of those times that I just gave you are always in Eastern time, New York time, US Eastern time, New York time. So if you live in a different time zone than that, then I recommend that you can either convert to your own time zone, or you can also join me on my Facebook fan page, or you can follow me on Twitter. I will post reminders on April 11th, April 12th, and 13th to let you know when it is the most potent time to set your intentions. So when you see those reminders pop up, you can just sit down and set your intentions at that point. Now, for more information about setting intentions, go to my website, to my blog page, look for astrology articles, or the tag New Moon Intentions. I will also have a link below this video, so you can just click on that link as well. And to sign up for my free monthly newsletter, you can go to my homepage at astrologercoach.com or email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. The newsletter has special offers, videos, announcements. It gets sent out approximately once or twice a month, sometimes more often than that, but not always. And then look, if you have any general questions about the new moon or about astrology, always feel free to email us at info@astrologercoach.com. If you have any personal questions that require of me to look at your birth chart, please book a reading on my website at astrologercoach.com. And for any questions that are connected to what's coming up within the next 30 to 40 days, join the next monthly forecasting forum on April 23rd. Again, we will focus on the upcoming Pluto Station and retrograde phase at 26 degrees of Capricorn. That's when that begins. And the retrograde phase will start on April 27th. And the forum is on the 23rd. Early bird special available until April 20th at midnight. That's it for that. Now, my members will see me in 2 weeks around the time of the full moon, so you can look at how far we've come since setting our new moon intentions and what has come to fruition for us. And everyone else in 4 weeks for the next new moon video. Until then, please stay focused on your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and inspire as much as possible. All right, much love to all of you. Namaste. I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.